What is up, you guys? This is All Day Any Day 1 on the PS4, and I'm going to be giving you a rotation guide, build guide, whatever you want to call it, on the Kinetic. So let's go ahead and take a look at the abilities. So there's not many, obviously there's no talents, which is kind of weird for a class to have no talents. There is combos, but there's no combos that give you buffs. So push inflicts 1.34 million damage to the selected enemy and knocks them back 15 yards once every 10 seconds. So you just tap square to push the enemy. Enhanced Pulse inflicts 2.18 million damage to the enemies in a cone-shaped area in front of the character and knocks them back for 15 yards every 10 seconds. So you just hold square down to the second bar. Energy Wave inflicts 2.52 million damage to enemies in a 6-yard radius and stuns them for 4 seconds once every 20 seconds. Fully charged Energy Wave requires 150 energy. It bounces off the enemies struck by it and inflicts additional 2.35 million damage in a 7-yard radius of each affected enemy. Each enemy may be hit by up to 2 such waves, so you hold square down up to the third bar. Then you have Single Stone, inflicts 840,000 damage to the selected enemy. Stone Blast inflicts 5.88 million damage to the selected enemy, consumes 6 charges of Kinetic Pulse, and gains a 10% bonus to damage for each removed effect. The Kinetic has less than 80 points of energy. The damage will be reduced 3 times, but the energy will not be spent. And now you have abilities. Energy Wave has 3 charge levels. Inflicts, so we already went over this. So you have the tap where you push your enemy, you tap square. If you want to push multiple enemies, you hold square to the second bar. If you want to push multiple every enemy around you, whatever, you have to hold square to 3 times. And then you have Gravity Anomaly. It's a 16-second cooldown, slows enemies down and increases the movement speed of the Kinetic and their allies inside the Gravity Anomaly. The Kinetic and their allies can use dashes for free, increases the Kinetic's damage by 40% for 8 seconds. Gravity Anomaly cannot be used against the same enemy only once per every 15 seconds. The damage bonus is applied to all characters of the Kinetic classes. Luminous Burst. The Kinetic is protected by a shield that moves with the Kinetic and inflicts 336,000 damage at the end of the run. All enemies in the way get knocked back. Yes, the projectile. Press and hold the button. Once the attack is ready, the character will inflict 5.88 million damage to the selected enemy. Fully charged stone projectile consumes 6 charges of Kinetic Pulse and gains a 10% bonus damage for each removed effect. If the Kinetic has less than 80 points of energy, the damage will be reduced 3 times, but the energy will not be sent. Kinetic Pulse inflicts 588,000 damage, applies 1 level of Kinetic Charge to the target that stacks up to 24 times. Kinetic Charge can be consumed by stone projectile, increasing its damage by 10% for each consumed level of the effect. The first Kinetic Pulse used in a fight applies 12 charges instead of 1. So if you start a fight, you make sure you use this on the boss, or if you're in a boss fight and there's a bunch of ads, make sure you're targeting the boss for this, so that way you can get those 12 charges right away. And then you have Gravity Trap. The monster is suspended in the air for 8 seconds. All the Kinetic's attacks inflict critical damage for 8 seconds. If the monster cannot be lifted in the air, its damage to the Kinetic is reduced by 50% for 10 seconds. So, its damage to So what it's gonna do is you're gonna have an 8-second crit damage duration right there, regardless of the enemy being in the air or not. So even if it's the boss, you're still gonna have an 8-second crit damage duration, but the boss will just do 50% less damage to you for the 10 seconds. Protective Shield creates a field that absorbs 75% of the damage taken by the Kinetic, protects their allies against the next portion of incoming damage, and protects both the Kinetic and their allies from finishing strikes. L2R1 Seismic Explosion. The Kinetic flings themselves in the air, inflicting 11.8 million damage to enemies in a 12-yard radius and additional 3.36 million damage for each affected target beyond the first, up to 21.8 million damage for 4 affected targets. So this is just an AoE ability. It's not like super strong, but it's nice for like mob clearing. Obliteration inflicts fatal damage available when the enemy has a small amount of health left, restores 100 points of energy. So the way we're going to go about, and then you have Sledgehammer, which is only changing one ability. Gravity Strike replaces stone projectile. Kinetic engages in a close combat, inflicting 6.05 million damage to the enemy and slowing the target by 70% for 2 seconds, up to 10 attacks for the duration of the effect. While the Sledgehammer is active, all the damage received by the Kinetic is reduced by 75%. I'm not exactly sure how to activate Gravity Strike unless it's part of something else that I probably misread or just looked over. But anyways, what you're gonna end up doing, Luminous Strike is gonna be a really good way to get into a combat, because it just throws you right in there and it knocks enemies down. But what you're gonna really want to focus on is you're gonna try to use your protective shield first as soon as you're in the combat, because as long as this is up, it'll keep you shielded or keep you protected. And then you're gonna go ahead and use Gravity Trap, and then you're gonna use the Gravity Anomaly. So Gravity Trap and then Gravity Anomaly, and then hold down energy. No, never mind. That was my bad. You're gonna go ahead and use Energy Wave first, so you can lift them up. Was it that, or was it this? I swear that it was Energy Wave that lifts enemies up. Yeah, you're gonna use Energy Wave first. So you're gonna use the 3 charges first, and then you're gonna use L2 square and then triangle, so that way you can get the crit damage increase and the base damage increase by 40% for both, because they're both gonna last for 8 seconds. And then but that's just, I'm hoping that'll be after you've already got your stacks. So once you've got your stacks, actually, because you don't want to waste 8 seconds of your time building up your stacks, so make sure you get your stacks up first. If it's just a bunch of enemies, don't worry about using Gravity Trap then. Just use Gravity Anomaly, because it's only a 16-second cooldown, and then use Energy Wave, hold down square, and then just start using Kinetic Pulse. So I'm actually going to just go ahead and show you guys instead of just sitting there and explaining it. So use circle to get into the combat, and then you're not going to use L2 square, you're going to just use triangle if it's just small enemies like this, because you don't have any stacks on them, and you'll know when you have stacks. The stacks are right under their health bar right there. So I'm going to go ahead and actually use both. I'm going to use Gravity Anomaly and Gravity Trap, lift them up in the air, and then hold R1. And that, when you do that, so when you hold R1, when the enemy has a bunch of stacks on them, it'll do a lot of damage to them. It's just that it's best if you do it on a boss enemy type though. So we're gonna go ahead and go to the dummy Secutor. I'm gonna go ahead and use circle to get into combat, and then make sure you do this make sure you use R2 to get your stacks up first before you do anything. If anything, you can, once you get into combat, you can drop the shield, so that way when you're building your stacks, you're not getting hurt as much. And then once you've got all your stacks going, hold square, and then triangle, and then L2 square, and then use this, hold R1, and then just go ahead and hold R1 again, and then you should have done a good chunk of damage right there. And then that's pretty much it, to be honest. It's not like you have a lot to learn with this, but other than the fact that you just need to, like I said, if you're if you're fighting a group of enemies like this, you're only gonna use triangle. So I gotta wait for them to respawn. You're only gonna use triangle so that way you get the extra damage, and they're all stuck in one spot. And then you can just go ahead and use R1. You don't have to get the charges if it's just a bunch of enemies like this. You can just hold R1 so you can start using all this. It's just that you won't be doing as much damage as you should be. If you're doing a boss fight, make sure you do get these charges maxed out though. You don't want to just go in without max charges, or if anything you want to have at least 15 charges or something, 15 or 16 charges, so that way you can still do a lot of damage. And I'm gonna go ahead and try to get his 24 stacks, and then you're gonna use triangle, all this together. Oh, it's hard to see the damage number, but oh well. Regardless, that's pretty much how you use the kinetic. This was not in any specific rotation. I'm just showing you what works with what. You can use what I just showed you, and then you can apply it to whatever rotations that you want to use your rotation as. I don't necessarily have a specific rotation for the kinetic, other than like what I said. If it's a boss fight, I try to get my stacks built up to 24 right away, and then as soon as I see it around 20 to 24, I go ahead and use triangle, L2 square, hold down R1, and then it'll do a lot of damage to them. If you have to, make sure you can also drop down your shield as well, because it's not going to just protect you, it's also going to protect your allies as well. They'll be able to take 75% less damage, as well as you being able to take 75% less damage. So that's pretty much it. Also, just remember you do have the square ability, so you can push them, or you can hold it to the second one to push multiples, or you can use this to push lift all of them up. It would have lifted all of them up, but yeah. If this video helped you out at all, go and leave a like, comment, subscribe. If you want to see more, go ahead and let me know down in the comment section on what characters you want to see next. And also let me know what type of videos you would like to see, if there's anything you'd like to know about this, not just this, but you know, just the game in general. Let me know. And yeah, that's pretty much it. This is all day in day one on the PS4. Have a good day, good night, and peace.